Hey there, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I'm sharing the first page I filled in a blank sketchbook after not creating for about a month, which for me feels like a long time. I'll also be sharing a few things at work to help me get over that initial hesitation that I always feel, especially when coming back into creating after a break. So if you've been away from your paints for a while too, then this video is for you. So this sketchbook page that I'm working on in this video was the first page of a month-long challenge called Artful August, where I was going to be painting every weekday for the whole month. It's actually become an annual tradition inside the Paint With Me community, my watercolor community, and every year so far, this is the third year, I've been able to complete all the entries. And usually it's after not creating consistently. So it's not like I've been creating very often and then I just roll into this challenge. I realized over time, though, that it's become a little less daunting to begin painting, especially considering that the intent, at least for this challenge, is to kick off a goal of painting more or less daily when I had only been painting once or twice a month, let's say. So it might help here if I offer a little context behind how much I actually create, and that is not as much as you might think. So I'm currently a full-time mom, and my son is in school for about 3 hours a day. Given the fact that I prefer painting in daylight, plus the fact that I'm not immune to prioritizing everything else before painting, I don't actually create every day. And that's just how it is. I don't try to guilt myself about it, at least not anymore. And I also don't make a big deal every time I sit down to make something because I know it won't and doesn't have to be anything, and it definitely won't be a masterpiece. Of course, I'm making that sound easier said than done. It is difficult to put marks down on paper, whether or not you've taken a break or it's just a new day and a fresh piece of paper. So here are 3 things that I found help me get over that initial awkwardness, intimidation, hesitation, basically whatever that resistance towards creating feels like to you. So the first thing I tend to do when I'm starting a blank page or a new sketchbook and I'm feeling a little bit hesitant is to start with something simple. For example, a subject that I find interesting or that has sparked some sort of inspiration that I feel drawn to and can be painted without a background. For some reason, this is what helps me. I don't want to take on a piece that has a background with a subject and I'm having to cover a lot of the page. When I can create something without a background, it means it can stand alone and I don't have to cover the whole surface. So less surface for me is less intimidating. So here in this video, I used a reference photo and it had a background that was full of flowers and colors, but I chose not to paint them as a full background. And instead, I isolated and selected a few stalks of flowers and then focused on the butterflies. So I am using a reference photo, but I've decided to simplify it for myself. It just felt easier and it felt more doable to me at that moment. You can also start with something familiar that you enjoy, that you feel comfortable drawing or painting, or something that you've painted before. You could replicate an old painting. Sometimes that feels easier as well. So really anything that makes it feel easier to approach and less intimidating is what I do. Another thing that helps me when I'm getting back into painting is to do my best to let go of my expectations. I try to remind myself that it's the act of actually sitting down to make something that's significant. It's really about the process and not the product. I think it's really easy to be hard on ourselves when we haven't created anything and we want to sit down and the first thing out of the gate needs to be some beautiful thing, especially if we're committing to it in a sketchbook. But I think for me, it's more important to remember that the time I'm sitting down, especially that first time, is about rediscovering what I love about painting, how much joy it brings me, how fulfilled I feel, or how at peace I am when I am creating something. I think it's about rediscovering that and remembering, oh, that's why I enjoy this process so much. And as a result, having a really joyful session, because I think sitting down to make something, it's not fun when you are stressed out and anxious and you're trying to produce this thing. So here are a few things I found myself doing when I do feel resistance. I will actually stop and take a deep breath and then remind myself of the following things. It's just a piece of paper, to just start, not overthink it, and that I'm not expecting it to look good. It's probably going to look bad. So I try to remind myself of these things before I get started, and it has become easier over time to do this. And the last thing that I have found that has helped me get over that resistance towards creating is to use a sketchbook that I've made. This is the third year I've made my own sketchbook for Artful August, and it has really helped me. The sketchbook contains paper that I've cut down myself from larger sheets, and it also contains the exact number of pages that I'm aiming to complete. I think that this has helped me because number one, it's not a formally bound sketchbook that I had to purchase, and usually those sketchbooks, they feel more formal. They have nice binding, and they look like they should contain these beautiful finished pieces, which I think adds to the pressure. The other thing about these sketchbooks that I make for myself are that they're short and they contain the exact number of pages that I'm aiming to fill. This one has 20 pages, and that's way less pages than a store-bought book. And filling it feels more doable and quite exciting because I feel like it's a goal I can actually complete. And then when I do, it feels so good. So I don't know about you, but if you're the type that likes to have these goals and you can aim yourself towards them and then you feel really great about completing them, then I think having a really small sketchbook with a few pages is helpful. I've also heard from my community members that making a sketchbook dedicated to this challenge or with a few number of pages that has less formal binding has really helped them too. So in conclusion, when I started with the butterflies that you're watching in this video, I knew it wasn't going to be a masterpiece. Did it bother me that it was going to be the first page and that it would probably not turn out the best? Yeah, it actually did. And I was crossing my fingers and hoping for the best and hoping that it would at least turn out to be something acceptable that I wouldn't mind being the first page of this sketchbook. After all, if it was really, really bad and I didn't want to look at that painting, I could always paint on a loose sheet of paper, cut it out, and glue it on top, which I didn't list as a thing I do, but that's always a great backup. So I know starting can be difficult, but each time you do it, the next time will feel easier. At least that's my experience. The more you paint, the more permission you give yourself to explore and to make mistakes and to realize that that painting is not going to be the last painting. Getting back into painting after stepping away always somehow feels like an uphill climb to me. But what I do know is that I have the most success in gaining momentum by taking it a little bit at a time. So keep in mind that there will be a next painting, that this one is not your last. It's just one in the process of making many and constantly discovering new things that you might want to bring into your next session. As I look at the painting in this video, I'm kind of amazed at my own growth. This entry and the last entry, which you haven't seen yet, embody a totally different attitude towards creating. I've explored, I've experimented, and most of all, I've had fun with this sketchbook. I'll be sharing the rest of the sketchbook in the next video if you're curious about the work that ended up filling its pages. So I hope if you're coming back to painting after a bit of a break, I hope this video has inspired you to pick up your brushes and start again. Remember, it's normal for it to feel strange and a bit hard, but if you're sitting there thinking about it, wanting to create something, I think you owe it to yourself to follow through, no matter what ends up on the page. I'll leave you with a quote from Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way. Whatever you think you can do or believe you can do, begin it. Action has magic, grace, and power in it. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.